Hello, fantasy players. I am live again. We are in week 12. Football is getting super exciting. It was already pretty exciting, but it's getting even more exciting. So that's awesome. I have really enjoyed doing these live streams for you guys. So I hope you guys have been enjoying them. I'm going to talk for a little bit and still. I want to try and get some more people watching before I start diving right into what I normally do, which is I go over the weather. Well, first I go over injuries, and then I go over the weather, and then I kind of answer some of your guys' questions about start sit, or in general, if you want to ask something outside of football for fun. I'm always up for having some fun, having a good time on the stream, because as much as we love fantasy football, and NFL football in general, it is also fun to get into some of the other stuff, some life questions and whatnot. So I'm always open to that. Again, sorry about the lighting. I have one light here, and it looks pretty bright in the room, but I mean I can see just by watching the screen here that it's pretty dark and dim. So I'm definitely going to work on that. Try and install a light over there or something, and just get some more light going on me, so I'm a little easier to see. But this is a work in progress. I'm trying to figure out how to make it look good, sound good, all those things. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. So let's go ahead and jump right into the injury news, and then we'll get to the weather and then your guys' questions, of course. So let's go ahead and get right to it. So, looking at the news here, it looks like we have George Kittle is hopeful to return Sunday. So, George Kittle plays Sunday night, and I actually have him in my main league. And I picked up Eric Ebron a couple weeks ago, just kind of as insurance in case. Well, if he doesn't go, if there's continued issues, I want to make sure that I have a backup plan. And he's been a fine backup plan. And I actually started Ebron this week because I didn't really expect Kittle to play, but it sounds like he's going to play. But I did just see on my sleeper app, he actually has like a broken bone in his foot, and he played through that in the Arizona game and then sat the next couple weeks. But apparently he's going to play tonight, but is obviously still dealing with that broken bone. A broken bone doesn't heal in 2 weeks. It usually takes 4. I've broken a lot of bones, and every time it's been a cast for, 4 weeks. So Kittle's hopeful to return on Sunday. And yeah, I mean, I guess you can fire him up again. I already had Ebron play on the Thursday night game, so I can't take that back. Can't go back on that call. Moving on, it looks like Alshon Jeffrey is going to suit up, which is good. That obviously helps out Carson Wentz. He's somebody that I picked up in my main league, for kind of like a playoff push quarterback. He's got some really nice matchups over the next few weeks. Looks like Alshon Jeffrey's going to play. Outside shot, maybe that Deshaun Jackson makes it back at some point. Probably not, though. I'm pretty doubtful about that. Jordan Howard is expected to sit out, so that just makes Miles Sanders even better. I already thought Miles Sanders was a pretty good guy to slot in there first. And let's see here. Moving on. Emmanuel Sanders should play. I would start him. Emmanuel Sanders is like Wolverine. He gets hurt and injured, and he comes back, so quickly. So he's somebody that, I'm not ever really worried about injuries affecting him too much. That kind of bit me in the butt last week because, he was hurt, and then he was going to play, and then he got hurt again. He had the rib injury and sat out, and I ended up losing my matchup. He was having a really good game, and I want to say it was like 10 or 15 points from Sanders, and he was at like almost 7 points when he got hurt, and it was very early in the game, and I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I got this, wrap it up, I'm going to win. But then he got hurt, and I ended up losing that matchup, but that's how it goes. So moving on, Brady was added to the Week 12 injury report. Brady's going to play. Brady always plays. He always ends up on the injury list for knee, elbow, shoulder, whatever. He always plays. So, I mean, if you have Brady, you can play him. I don't think this is a great spot for him. But sometimes 2 quarterback leagues or, sometimes you get desperate. So, but yeah, he'll play. You don't have to worry about him not playing at all. Tyler Lockett was cleared to play, so that's good. He should be back in the lineup for Seattle. Sterling Shepard was removed from the concussion protocol. I don't think he's a great play anyways. I guess it's just notable. Devontae Freeman's going to be out. I still don't like Brian Hill in this matchup at all. I didn't rush to grab Brian Hill like everybody did last week, and it worked out for me so far. So Evan Ingram is out. AJ Green, no shocker, no practice Friday. I don't think he's going to play at all this year, and I don't think he should. He doesn't really have any reason to play, nothing to play for. Looks like Brandon Cook should be returning. Yeah, and then everything else is pretty much just previous, already gone by with Colts and Texans game news there. So let's go ahead and move over to the weather report. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot to worry about here. Dome games, obviously, we don't worry about. Mostly clear games here. So if we go to the Raiders and the Jets, it's some cool temperatures, cloudy skies, and a chance of rain. It says saying 46 degrees at kickoff and then 53% chance of rain. So it could be a little ugly there. Keep an eye on that for sure, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be terrible. But we'll see. Again, the Cowboys and the Patriots. I'm actually a New England native, and it's kind of crappy out there. It's like freezing rain and ice everywhere, so it's not great. 46 degrees, chance of rain. So it looks like there's going to be heavy rain and cold temperatures. So, yeah, the offense for the Patriots has been pretty brutal anyways. And the Patriots defense has been really, really good. So I would really temper your expectations. I know a lot of people are trying to be contrarian and like DFS and whatnot and trying to go with a lot of the Cowboys players, kind of stacking Dak with those weapons and hoping, one of them's got to catch a couple touchdowns or whatever, or go off. But this defense has been playing really, really well outside of the game against Baltimore. They have really shut teams down. And when you add in the bad weather, I really don't see a path for the Cowboys offense to really light it up. It definitely makes me like Zeke a little bit more because I think the Pats, if they do have a weakness on defense, it's probably against the run. And having a game like this where it's cold and rainy, wet, all that stuff, it makes a lot more sense to kind of lean on your $90 million running back in your very stout offensive line. Moving on here, that's pretty much it. I don't see anything else wind or rain wise that really looks of any concern. So just to recap really quick, you're really only looking at the Raiders, Jets, and the Cowboys, Patriots as 2 games that might have some rain and some cold temperatures that are really going to affect it. So everything else, I mean, it's getting cold everywhere around the NFL, obviously. It's you got temperatures in the 40s and the 50s, but we're still not at that below freezing point. We're not in those single digit temperatures, the real frigid stuff that makes the ball really hard and tough to throw, tough to catch, etc. Unless you're Aaron Rodgers and you like it when it's cold because you're weird. So yeah, there's that. I'm going to go ahead and jump into your guys' questions now. I have one question up. It says Rodgers or Mayfield. This is a good question. Mayfield has had obviously a really, really tough year, and Rodgers hasn't been lighting it up per se, but he's still Aaron Rodgers, and he's had some good games here and there. Honestly, I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield here because neither quarterback really offers much on the ground. They both can run here and there for a first down, but they're not running quarterbacks. Obviously, they're more pocket passers or running outside the pocket and passing, but not really gaining the rush yards. They're just running outside to create time and then try and find a receiver. So definitely going to go with Mayfield there because the Dolphins have just been so easy to pick on. They're such a bad defense, and the Niners are a good defense. Now, they've obviously looked a lot more beatable in the last 3 weeks or so. At the beginning of the season, they looked like on par with the Patriots. It was that defense and the Pats defense that everybody was looking at and saying, wow, these guys just shut people down. And, that really hasn't been the case the past 3 weeks. So, excuse me, I'm definitely confident in starting Baker against the Dolphins. They've just been a dumpster fire. And if there's a spot for Baker to have a good game, a solid game, and really lean on Landry and Beckham and Chubb and Hunt. See, the thing is, I don't love necessarily the passing weapons a whole ton. I do because of the matchup, but I think it's just a great spot to really plug in somebody like Mayfield because rather than trying to guess where those targets are going to go exactly or who's going to catch the touchdowns, etc., I really just want to rock Baker and just bank on the fact that he has a smash matchup and that he's going to smash. So, definitely Mayfield. Thanks for the question, TS. It's a very short name, TS. There you go. I hope that helped you out a little bit. So I don't know if you guys got any other questions that you want to ask, but I am here to answer them. This stream is going much faster than usually. Usually I stream for about 30 minutes or slightly over, and I'm at 12 minutes right now, and I've only had one question. So I don't want to ramble on here too long. I do post these videos to the YouTube channel after I'm done streaming so that people can kind of watch them if they weren't able to log on at 11. They want to try and watch it real quick before they get into their weekly matchups and whatnot. And they can. So, I mean, I feel like I'm just rambling at this point, waiting for potential people to jump in and maybe ask some questions. But maybe you guys are just set. Maybe you guys are all good to go. Don't have any questions to ask about your lineups. But let me see. I'm gonna take a look here at the different matchups, and it's definitely starting to get into the home stretch here. You got the last few weeks of your regular season matchups before we start getting into the playoffs. So you guys definitely want to start thinking about stashing players that are on teams that have good matchups in the playoffs or defenses that do. I still think it's a little early to stash a defense. You don't want to handcuff your bench too much. You really want guys like Alexander Madison, Rashad Penny, Tony Pollard, the elite handcuffs that if their primary back on that team goes down due to injury over these next couple of weeks, you have a guy that is just going to be awesome and he's just going to smash every week. So definitely reserve the spots on the end of your bench for those kind of guys. You don't want to take up too much of your bench trying to go too crazy with stashing stuff. But you definitely start looking at stashing a QB to try and get a couple wins in these last few matchups. Like I said, I have 2 tight ends on my roster right now, which I don't usually do that, especially if I have someone like George Kittle. But just because he's been dealing with the injuries, I obviously don't want to trade or drop Kittle, but I don't want to sit here and not have somebody to plug in. So I've just kind of been letting Ebron take the tight end job for now and until Kittle can come back and be healthy and I can trust that, he's good to go. Toxic Uprising, what's going on? Thanks for your question. He asked Carson, Ingram, or Chubb. Pick 2. If you guys can tell me PPR and standard when you ask your questions, that does help. It does make a bit of a difference there. But I'm going to just kind of go with half PPR, so it's sort of best of both worlds here. Let's see. It's a touchdown-based league. I'm not sure what touchdown-based league means. I'm assuming that you mean it's a standard league and you don't have PPR, you don't have points per reception. So yeah, I would go with Carson and Ingram. I know that Chubb has like a really good spot here playing against Miami, but there's been a really strange trend kind of going on and happening with Cleveland where Kareem Hunt has really gotten involved. He's really started to become a part of this offense, and Chubb doesn't catch the ball at all. And if it's standard, that doesn't hurt as much, obviously. But let's see, 2 points per 50 yards rushing, 6 points per touchdown. Okay, that makes me like Chubb a little bit more. Chris Carson is the definite 2 points for 50 receiving. Okay, all right. So here's what I'm gonna say. Toxic Uprising. As far as those three go, Carson is 100% yes. Carson is like absolutely no questions asked because I have Chris Carson. Let me see here. Have my rankings right here. Just give me 1 second. I have Chris Carson as that's weird. It's not coming up. Let's see. Just trying to see where I have these guys ranked so I can help you out a little bit more and kind of explain where I'm at. Well, apparently my PDF is not wanting to work right now. Every time I try to search a name, it's crashing. Maybe I need to update the app or something, but I will just go offhand here. So Carson's a definite yes for me. I realize that the matchup isn't 100% ideal with Carson. And you look at the matchup with Miami against the Browns, and that's obviously a lot more attractive from like a pure on paper standpoint. But like I said, they're really involving Kareem Hunt, and I really feel like this is the kind of game where Odell Beckham's had a really quiet year, and you've seen it throughout the whole season where Baker has really tried to force the ball to Beckham, almost like I gotta get it to him. He's my best player. He's Beckham, whatever. He's really tried to force feed him, and I think this is a game where he can force feed him, and it's gonna work out because he's gonna be a lot more open, a lot easier to hit because this team just really freaking sucks. So I think there's going to be a lot of passing, and Chubb just doesn't get that passing work. So I'm going to have to say it's Carson and Ingram. Ingram's really been doing well lately. He's been involved in the pass game. The Rams really are not good defensively. They're kind of middle of the road. Like a lot of people think about the Rams and they're like, oh, what a team. They're so good on defense. They're so good on offense, but this is not their year. They've been playing terribly. And, Baltimore's been on fire. They've been wrecking everybody pretty much. And now they got their defense figured out. And that's coming together and starting to play pretty great. So they're a force to be reckoned with. So for me, this is a very interesting league, by the way. I like the little bonuses. That's kind of interesting. But you're going to want to go with Carson and Ingram for sure. I feel pretty confident about that. So yeah, I hope that helped out Toxic Uprising. Sorry that my iPad is wigging out right now. But technology, that's how it goes. Sometimes it decides it doesn't want to work. So sorry I couldn't give you my exact rankings to see kind of how different they are. I don't know off the top of my head, but like I said, I'll have to update that so that I can figure it out. Let me see here. Not sure what other games would be good to talk about. got that should be interesting. Sunday night's game, Packers and 49ers. It's going to be a fun game to watch for sure. Lots of playoff implications there for sure. Cowboys, Patriots, obviously pretty good matchup. You have the number one passing offense and the number one passing defense matching up against each other. So that's going to be interesting. Been a very, very interesting year. Lots of interesting injuries and storylines and whatnot. Backup quarterbacks and third string quarterbacks, and Myles Garrett beating Mason Rudolph over the head with his helmet. All sorts of fun stuff going on this year. So it's been fun to be an NFL fan. Toxic Uprising is another question. He says, Andrews or Metcalf? Flex, same league. Well, Lockett is coming back, which obviously should kind of tone down Metcalf's targets a little bit. And I had somebody ask the question a couple of weeks ago about Metcalf and his value and if it gets hurt at all with Josh Gordon. And I said I didn't think it really did. And a lot of people have come out and said that they think that it does. I still feel like it's not a huge hit, but I guess we'll see. We've only had a very limited sample size of the two of them being together, and now Lockett's back into the mix. So the Eagles have been very beatable in the pass game, but they that was kind of earlier in the year. They're starting to get their act together a little bit and play a little bit better. And they've been stout against the run and good at putting pressure on the quarterback all year. But one thing that we all know about Russell Wilson is that if there's one quarterback that can run around and make time and make space for his receivers to get open, it's definitely Russell Wilson. He's someone who could definitely wreak havoc on this Eagles defense because even though they got the good rush, he's so good at avoiding it. And then looking at the other matchup, the Ravens against the Rams, it is a pretty good spot. Oh, hold on. Sorry, guys. I had a pop up on my computer. There we go. I'm back. It is a pretty good matchup, theoretically, but I'm going to go with we'll put it to you this way. If you look at if you are in a matchup where you're like, I need this win, I think you have more upside with Metcalf. So if you want to go with the upside play, it's Metcalf. If you're in a matchup where you're like, you know what, I need like 8 to 10 points from my flex spot, I think Andrews is a safer play, but he does not have the ceiling that Metcalf has. So really that should be the deciding factor here is what's your record, how are you doing, and who are you playing against? Are you playing against the team that's, got a stellar record, or are you playing against the middle road of the team? That's really going to push it over the edge because those two are pretty close. It's a good question. So yeah, just make that decision of, do you need this win? Are they like a team that really scores a lot of points regularly? Do their players have really good matchups? Go with Metcalf because you have the higher ceiling there. Is it a team that doesn't have a great record, or maybe their players' matchups aren't great and you're just trying to have a really good floor play? Then I would go with Andrews. So Metcalf ceiling, Andrews floor. That's how I would handle that. So make the decision between wanting to have the floor or the ceiling of the floor play. So I hope that helps, Toxic Uprising. Thanks for tuning in and listening and giving some questions. So let's see. We got Montgomery and Cohen PPR. Let's see. Let's try my rankings again. Okay, so looks like I have Montgomery 66, and then I have Cohen at 70. So I have Cohen at 70 and Montgomery at 66. So that's for like flex overall. So that's ranking wide receivers and running backs, flex wise. If you want just RB, I can check that for you too. Let me just go to my PPR here just so I can get a little bit more close to it. So Montgomery, I have at RB25, and then Cohen I have at 26. Wow. So I have them right next to each other. So if I'm going purely off my rankings, yeah, I guess I would have to say Montgomery, but that's, again, an excellent question because looking at my PPR rankings, I literally have them 25 and 26. They're right next to each other. So you really can't go wrong between the two, but I'll give the slight edge to Montgomery because I want to stay true to my rankings. I put a lot of time and effort into looking at these games, looking at these matchups and trends and whatnot. So I will stay true to my rankings. And even though they're right next to each other, I will say Montgomery over Cohen, but it's close. So again, excellent question. That's funny. You asked me, and they're literally ranked right next to each other for me. So, excuse me. I didn't get my cup of water ready this week. I was running pretty late. I had a lot of errands to run this morning, and I looked down at my phone. And it was 10:56, and I was like, "Oh crap! I gotta go run to the studio and log in and get streaming." So. I was a little bit disorganized this morning. I don't have my cup of water, and throat's getting a little dry. But for those of you that watched last week's episode, I had my wife's mug that says "wifey" on it, and we had some fun laughing about that. But no wifey mug for me this week, so therefore no water. Toxic Uprising's got another question. He says, Jacob Hollister, 2 pretty good game back-to-back. Thoughts on him today? So, excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. Let me take a look here. Just off the cuff, without looking at my rankings, Hollister is somebody that, again, these are PPR for me. So, all right. So it's not coming up again. Man, I don't know what's going on. I got to update it or something because it's not happening right now. I like Hollister. I think it's been exciting to see. I am a Pats fan, and obviously Hollister was a long time, well, not super long time, but he was on the practice squad for the Pats for a couple of years, and he saw some play here and there. So there's a lot of people, like with Gronk gone and then seeing Hollister play really well in Seattle, they're like, well, what the heck? Why'd you let him go? But that's how it goes sometimes. And I think that Hollister playing really well, I think that's more of a credit to Russell Wilson than it is anything else because, I mean, don't get me wrong, Hollister seems like a great guy, good enough football player, but he's not Gronkowski. He's not Travis Kelce, George Kittle, whatever. He's playing really well as of late, but I don't really expect it to continue. You've got Metcalf now, and you've had Metcalf. Lockett's back in the lineup, who is obviously Wilson's favorite target, and now you added Josh Gordon. So when people were looking at this and they're saying like, "Oh, it really hurts Metcalf," and I said, and I thought, and still do think, I don't think it hurts Metcalf as much as it hurts Hollister, because I really think that the big body red zone target, that's Metcalf and that's Gordon. And Lockett's really obviously like the favorite target. I think he really starts to kind of fall down the depth chart now and fall down not necessarily the depth chart, because I mean obviously they're injured at tight end and he's been serviceable, but I don't think you can expect him to keep putting up tight end 1 weeks. If you're in a 2 tight end league or a really deep league, yeah, sure, like maybe you can give him a start here or there, but I don't really like Hollister, honestly, to continue. I don't think he's going to. I think now that Seattle is healthy again with Lockett back, and like I said, adding Gordon's going to be more involved now. He's been in the system now for almost I think 2 weeks now, so he's really starting to learn the playbook and understand how Seattle runs their offense, etc. And I think Gordon being there and Lockett being back really hurts Hollister. What game do I think I will tune into first on the early games? I usually watch Red Zone pretty much exclusively. If there's like a marquee game, like a really good matchup, I'll try and pull both of them up. But as it stands right now, I have one TV in my living room. And I have an iPad, I have a laptop, I got a TV in my bedroom. So like, sure, I could work it and get some more games up, but I like watching Red Zone because it gives me a really good kind of picture of what's going on in each game. And then what I'm able to do later is I can go back and I have it so that all the games record like DVR cloud for me. So I can go back and I can actually kind of watch them condensed in my own way. I can, fast forward for commercial breaks and whatnot. And I really try to hit every game I can. And if I can't watch every game, the ones that maybe were lower scoring or don't seem to have as much fantasy implications, I'll kind of watch recaps of on YouTube and whatnot, just to try and get the picture of what happened. But this week, if I take a look at the matchups, my favorite game and the one that I would be most tempted to tune into outside of Red Zone, let me just pull them up here. So we have early games. We have Dolphins and Browns. Yuck, don't really want to watch that. Lions and Redskins. Again, don't really want to watch that. Raiders and Jets. Boo. Giants and Bears. Panthers and Saints. Panthers and Saints is interesting because there's obviously so much fantasy goodness on both sides. Both of those teams are chock full of guys that are in people's lineups. I mean, you have arguably the two best running backs. Christian McCaffrey has just been insane. I am a proud owner of CMC, and man, if this guy wins me a championship this year, I'm definitely going to have to get me a jersey off Pristine Auction. So that's definitely one that I'd be interested in tuning into. Again, Seahawks, Eagles, that's interesting. Bucks, Falcons, again, a lot of fantasy goodness, but I don't really have a whole lot of reason to watch that. Broncos, Bills, not really interested. Bengals and Steelers is not interesting at all. That's going to be boring. And that's pretty much it for the 1 o'clock slate. So there's no games I'm like crazy about. I guess the two that I'd be tempted to watch are Panthers, Saints, or Bucks, Falcons. Those are the two that would be interesting because they're the two that I think are going to have some good offensive, exciting plays to watch. But again, I'll probably, for the most part, just tune into Red Zone because I get to kind of see it all. And then Toxic Uprising says, I have to start Hollister because Kelsey has a bye. Yeah, so I have Kelsey in one of my other leagues, and obviously I had to bench him as well. And I was able to get Jared Cook off the waiver, and I figured for a 1 week fill-in, I could do a whole lot worse than Jared Cook. So yeah, sometimes you're in that situation. I mean, I don't know who's available on your wire, but there's definitely other tight ends that I like over Hollister that potentially could be available on your wire, and it might not be too late to grab them. So how well is your fantasy team? Okay, so that's a great question. I was in, let's see, best ball wise, I'm doing really, really well. I entered somewhere around 30 to 35 entries for best ball of varying sizes, and I'm winning probably 70% of them. So I did really well in best ball last year, and I so far seem to be doing pretty well this year as well. Best ball is super fun to do. But as far as I have one dynasty team that admittedly I keep kind of forgetting about because we drafted like forever ago. It's my first year in it, and it's like a free Twitter league. And honestly, there's like a couple people in the league that really suck and are just obnoxious, and they're always talking trash. And I'm fine with talking trash, but I mean like just like degrading people, like not just like, oh, your team sucks, I'm gonna beat you, but like just degrading people, being flat out like rude and just terrible. So it's just that game, that league doesn't pop up on my radar as much. So I was in fourth place there, but multiple weeks in a row, I have forgot to change my lineup for the Thursday games. So, like for instance, this week I left Hopkins on my bench, who I had just traded for a week ago. So whoops. So admittedly, I've really let that one fall to the wayside. I kind of forget about it until I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in a league for sleeper. I should probably go check that. My ESPN league, I'm actually doing pretty well. I'll pull it up for you right now. The ESPN league is actually run by my best friend Brian Wentworth. He has a website, fantasycheatcode.com. I write articles for that. He writes articles for that. He writes most of them. I've just written a couple. He's an awesome follow on Twitter. He is Brian Wentworth FF, at Brian Wentworth FF, and he's an awesome guy. You can find him through my Twitter as well, and he runs this league. So currently, I'll go right now to that league on ESPN, and I am in second place. I'm 8-3-0. Doing pretty good in that league. Started off a little iffy in that league. I got those 3 losses fairly early on, but I've really kind of hit my stride here, made some good trades, made some good waiver moves, and I've done well there. And then I have a Yahoo league that I am running, I guess. And on paper, my team is really, really good, but I'm 4-7-0 in that league. I have just had the worst luck, whether it be, losing by the skin of my teeth at, with the last 2 players playing or whatever, or, playing, how some teams are really good in the league, some are really bad. So theoretically, I played the really good teams towards the beginning of the year and got a few losses. And then theoretically, it was supposed to swing back and I was supposed to get some wins against the easy teams. But those easy teams, 2 of them put up over 160 points when they played me. And those teams averaged under 100. So I got to play them on their best week. So it's one of those situations where I'm very high in scoring in the league, but I'm having some pretty bad luck matchup wise, and sometimes it goes like that. So I am 4-7 in that league. I am ashamed. I'm in 8th place out of 12, but in the other one, I am in 2nd place out of 12, and doing pretty well. Definitely going to make the playoffs. I hope that I can keep this winning streak going so that I can have that nice bye. It's always nice to have a bye in the playoffs. So. And then the one other league that I was in was called a guillotine league, where there's 16 teams, and you draft this crazy roster with 2 quarterbacks. I think it was 3 receivers, 3 running backs, a couple tight ends. I don't think, no kicker, no defense. It was a pretty big bench. It was crazy. You had to go really, really deep. And every week, the lowest score on the week got eliminated, and all their players got put into the waiver pool. And then waiver priority was decided by lowest points on the season. So basically, the idea was to do really bad during the week, but to not have the least amount of points, because then you would get eliminated. And I was doing very, very well in that. And then I got a little too creative, and I took Travis Kelce out of my lineup and put another tight end in that I knew wasn't going to have any points. And then it came down to the matchup, and it was 3 minutes before a 4:20 game was going to start. And I went to my lineup and I went to put Travis Kelce back in because I saw that I looked at the scores and I was like, okay, so these other guys didn't do quite as well as I thought they would. So let's put Travis Kelce back in just to ensure I don't get eliminated. And I was locked out. ESPN was like, nope, can't switch it. So I was too late on that one. Ended up losing, getting cut out of that. But that league was super cool. It was a lot of fun while it lasted. It's still going on. Obviously, it goes all 16 weeks. $400 to the winner, and it was a $50 buy-in. So 400 to the winner, and then 400 to a charity, which was awesome. I was really glad to be a part of that, and I hope I have the opportunity to. I hope I get invited back to that next year. So yeah, I could start Goddard, Fant, Griffin, Brait, Smith, or Watson over Hollister. I like Goddard and Fant better. Griffin's better as well. It's the Brate, Smith, and Watson where it starts to get a little iffy. But Dallas Goedert, yeah, I like that. Noah Fant, yeah. Let me just take a look here at my rankings again. I can tell you which one I like the best. If this is PPR still, PPR tight ends, pull up the tab. So I have. Let's see here. Oh. Here we go. It might actually be working now. Oh, man. Here we go. So I have Zach Ertz as my number one. I think he's going to get a bunch of volume, and Goddard's really not too far behind for me. Ryan Griffin I have at 10. So, let's see. It's tough. It gets really tight end is so rough this week, especially if you're like doing DFS and whatnot. But I mean, it's been tough this year in general between injuries, between guys like OJ Howard not at all making that step up that we really thought. I mean, I'm someone who in the ESPN league I was talking about, I believe it was the 4th or 5th round I grabbed OJ Howard. I mean, I grabbed him pretty early, but I mean, I was confident that he was really gonna make that next step, and he hasn't. So it's been tough. So, if you really want to roll with Hollister, it's not a terrible dice roll. I do like Goddard and Fant. Fant's got a tough matchup, so I guess those are your options, and they're not great. If you did pivot off of Hollister, I would go with either Goddard or Griffin. Fant, Brate, Smith, and Watson. I can't really go there. I like Goddard the best out of all those. Yeah, I have Goddard as my 7th overall tight end. So if I were you, I would roll with Goddard. And also on top of that too, Goddard's been playing really well. You have that, and then also the Eagles have a great end of the season. I mean, their end of the season schedule going into the fantasy playoffs is insane. Let me just pull up their schedule really quick, just so I can kind of actually it'll be quicker just to do it off of here. So if I go here and I just go to my roster really quick, I actually picked up Carson Wentz in this league, so I'm going to drop them to the bench or to the waiver, which was great for me. So if you look right here, they play Seattle this week, which they haven't been great against the pass. Awesome matchup. They play against Miami, then the Giants, then Washington, then Dallas. Okay, Dallas is pretty good. And then the Giants again. So these are your end of season matchups for the Eagles. You have Seattle today, Miami, New York Giants, Washington, Dallas, and New York Giants again. That is amazing. That is awesome. That is why I'm so glad Carson Wentz is on my team. Honestly, Goddard's someone who you could pick up and you could feel confident having good matchups all those weeks. The only matchup out of all those that's a little rough is Dallas. But even then, it's not like the Patriots or something like that. Yeah, man, I would go with Goddard and let somebody else struggle with trying to guess when Hollister's going to have good games with Russell Wilson having all those other targets. So, yep, Goddard's my answer. Took me a bit to get there, but that's my answer. All right, well, I hope you guys thoroughly enjoyed this stream. I'm coming up on 45 minutes. So unless you guys have any other questions, anything that you want to ask or talk about. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thanks again so much for watching, listening, following, liking, all those things. I really hope that you guys are able to continue to do so. Please like and subscribe, and check me out on Twitter. I am at Engage8Fantasy, the number 8. Justin Stevens, we're working on a lot of stuff for a website. The holidays are coming up, so things are, a little bit slow at the moment. But after we get through this Thanksgiving push here, we're going to have a couple weeks in December where we can workshop some stuff, and then going into the off season, we're going to keep it going strong and try to come up with a lot of content. That way, by the time next season comes along, we are ready to roll with website, articles, videos, podcasts, just coming at you guys with content. So I really hope you enjoy. Thanks again so much for all your support, and I hope you guys smash your matchups this week. Let me know how they go. All right, guys, have a great week.